You're listening to the Bomber Podcast.
Hi guys, hey, welcome back to the Bomber Podcast. Today is episode 8, and I get to have, I don't even like calling him my good buddy. Like he's more like he's too young to be my good buddy. No, this is my good friend Hunter Bunch, who spent a long time here with the Bombers, and super proud of him and what he's doing at the collegiate level. And reached out to him the other day, started looking at his numbers, and I was like, dude, hold up, man. So I was like, his numbers are off the chart. He's killing it at Georgia Tech. And I said, hey, man, I need to get you on the podcast and talk softball. So welcome, bro.
Thanks, Pops. Appreciate it.
Don't you call me Pops on the podcast, dog, right?
What's up?
No, you call me Pops for a long time. I don't know if that's because I'm old. I am old. The grandkids call me Pop. So it just falls.
I was calling you Pops.
Don't call me Pops. You don't get to call me Pops. Them little girls do, but not you. You call me Pops. So, bro, like, tell people about you. Give people your background a little bit, and then we're going to talk about how the heck you got into coaching fast pitch softball.
Yeah, so played college baseball and kind of moved past that throughout my life. That chapter closed. And, coaching high school baseball and high school football. Didn't want to be a teacher. And then I moved out to Texas and ran into a gentleman named Eddie Sessom and Casey Jackson. And they kind of, hey, have you ever done anything with softball? And I said, no, I just do baseball. He's like, well, just come out and watch practice. So I went out and I saw the likes of Tori Vidalis, Bailey Quinn, like those type of kids, and quit my job when I was working at 24 Hour Fitness, being a membership manager, and I was figuring out how to, make this a possibility for me because I love the speed of the game. It's addicting coming from baseball. And, I was working night stock at Kroger with a college degree, trying to make my way through it. And then, I DM'd you, Scott, and asked you if you had a spot open for me. And I started coaching with Bill Jones. And then from there, coached with you for about a year and a half. And I got my own team with the Bombers. And then...
Hold on, you're bypassing the ass whipping you took in Colorado. You're bypassing that altogether.
Okay, well, you have Georgia Clark, who I think was probably the best hitter I've ever seen. She hit like 3 home runs that game, and it was a back and forth. And Bailey Klingler hits a home run, and I do the tiger pump in front of you at third base.
What we were sitting in the dugout. You literally looked at us when you pumped your fist at us.
Oh, yeah.
And we all looked at each other like, what? Okay. And then we kind of talked about like, dude, that guy's he's wearing the wrong colors. Like, he needs to be a Bomber coach. There's no question. He's got some juice. We like him.
So yeah, that was a hell of a game. And then I just remember that, when I came over, I got to coach kids like Georgia Clark, Peyton Jackson, Tori Willett. Like, you talk about some of the elite of the elites, and that's what I got to be around when I was coaching with you, and just some of the talent that was in Texas and in the Bombers organization that we were able to bring into the fold. Like, man, our teams were stacked. I remember I think the turning of the tides of travel softball happened at a game that we were both coaching in. We were playing Firecracker Drico at PTF, and Kayla Garcia hit that single, and we beat Rico. I remember that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that was a great game to watch.
I have seen your evolution, right? So, I would say we're going on now 8-9 years of knowing one another. It seems like a long time, but it's really not in the big scheme of it all. But the reality of it was your passion for softball. You were a younger guy. It made no sense that you wanted to coach softball versus baseball, but you saw the light pretty early on. Like, you found the love of fast pitch softball pretty quick. where, like me, the only reason I even got in it was I had my daughter Jade. I tell her all the time, if my son had come first, I'd probably never coach fast pitch softball. But you found that love for the game pretty quick, and I could see your passion in it. And then when you came over with the Bombers, you were a refreshing addition to what we already had, which was a really good coaching staff. But you added a flair. I think the players appreciated your passion for it. And what was probably the most impressive part in watching your journey, Hunter, was you didn't act like you knew it all. Right? Me too. But there's a lot of people that aren't willing to learn. Right? Like they just are, I played or I did this and I know everything there is to know about the game. And the game, I think, with that time too, was in a real transition towards power. Yep. Right? Like power was becoming, not that power wasn't a big deal before, I don't mean it like that, but you started mentioning some of the names, Vidalis and Georgia Clark, and like probably some of the better hitters to probably ever play in Texas. And we were seeing them every weekend, and you were having to find ways to, if you're a pitching person, I imagine you hated it, having to try to figure out how to get those guys out. But it was really refreshing to see you immerse yourself in the game and not think you knew it all because of whatever you thought your background was coming into that. But you embraced technology on the front end. Remember the conversation you and I had back? I said, dude, I think you can carve a niche in this, man.
Yeah, we were in the truck. I remember.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I just said, look, man, like nobody's going to listen to me. Right. You remember me telling you that? Like I'm an old guy. Like I'm not supposed to be the guy who's at the forefront of saying, hey, I think data and data analytics and data capture are going to play a role in player development and in-game management and evaluation of hitters and all these things. But I remember you and I talking about that and you going, let's go. Like, what do I got to, let's figure it out. And you just started down that path. And I think it's certainly serving you well. I'm certain you're using a lot of those things that you found along the way in that journey. But, I think back to, heck, you were given presentations for Blast Motion and we were filming content for them at our lab. And like just seeing where you're at today is not surprising to me. There might be some people that are like, whoa, like, dude, what about Georgia Tech? Like, shit, I'm not. Like, I'm not at all. Like, I'd be more surprised if it wasn't. Like, I'd be like, wait, what the hell is he doing over there? But the fact that you are having the success you are having does not shock me in the least little bit, because I think you are as forward-thinking and as talented. When your head coach reached out to me about hiring you, I asked her what I told her. I said, I think he's one of the foremost smartest guys in the sport when it comes to hitting, and I think he has a chance to help you a lot. I think he can come make a difference pretty quickly for you. I was in California when she called me. I remember it. I was standing in the line waiting to take a piss, and I had to get out of the line. I was like, dude, I got to take this call because I wasn't sure why that number was coming up. Yep. And I remember talking to her for probably 10 minutes, and when you got hired there, I remember we talked about it, and me and Dale Siri and us were like, oh, Georgia Tech might be pretty good here pretty quick. Yep. So, I think that's really cool. Let's talk about the Georgia Tech offensive boom that's happened, right? In 1 year, right? So I'm going to rattle off some numbers. Now, this is certainly, I always say this, man, this ain't to disparage last year's team. Yep. But numbers are numbers. They are what they are. Like you are what your numbers are. It's like we tell players all the time. You can act like you one thing, but your numbers say you something different, right? Yep. Last year, Georgia Tech's team batting average at the end of the season was 262. This year, it's 311. Like, okay, that people don't realize that don't sound like a lot. That's a big jump. That ain't a little jump. That's a big jump. Here's a bigger jump. Last year, y'all hit 48 home runs as a team. This year, you've hit 86. You damn near have doubled the home runs there. And this is the stat that I think is probably having the biggest effect on your offensive production, because those other ones are super important. But your slugging was 433 last year, and you're slugging almost 600 this year at 559. Like, when you can produce big damage numbers like that, it either pulls you away in games or it puts you back in games. Yeah. And so offensively, you guys have had an incredible year. I think people, you ain't sneaking up on nobody now when they play you offensively. Yeah. Like, maybe they didn't prep for you in the beginning. They're prepping for your ass now. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Maybe it was like, hey, we're playing Georgia Tech. Oh, we're good. Now they're saying, hey, bro, we're playing Georgia Tech. Right. Like, let's get our shit together. Yeah. Right. So that's the other cool thing about this podcast, Hunter. I can say bad words. It's not a big deal. So.
Good. I was wondering. Yeah.
They're verbs for me, right? Yeah. They're just they're descriptive. Yeah. So talk about your offensive boom. How did I know there's a big long story about how you got there. It's not something as simple. It's not magic dust, but talk about it when you got there. Where'd you start? And how did you get to this place? Like, what was that process? What did it look like a little bit?
So the first week, like, you got to get your kids to trust you, and no matter what. So it was more of like, what'd you do before you got to Georgia Tech? Go back to that, because you were like, they had like, we were talking about this, like, not everybody can hit on their backside and be productive. So when I came in, I saw a lot of the kids were being taught to hit on their backside, and I basically just told them, hey, just go back to what you did before, and let's just see what that looks like. And we had Blast, so we were collecting the data. We had Yacker Tech going as well, collecting that data. So we had on the field, seeing what the ball flight was doing, seeing what the bats were doing, and just using technology and film to really just like, okay, there's a good movement pattern here. Let's try to start working on that. And then I think the biggest thing for us was a couple of things. None of the girls had a routine, in the sense of, like, they're in the box, they're not taking a deep breath, they're rushing through it, they're not thinking, but like, they're not slowing their heart rate down. And so we were talking about a lot of stuff like, okay, what's your game plan? Well, I'm looking for this. Okay, well, you're not probably going to get that, so let's talk about that. And then, just game planning, having a routine, and then doing what's natural to them, and then swing the shit out of the bat.
Swing it. You might hit it. If you swing hard, you might hit it.
Based on your shoulder, you're probably not going to do much more.
It's interesting, as you were talking about what players hunt and those kind of things, and that's been the biggest difference, I think, for us with the Bombers. I think that evolution, and then it's certainly what I carry when I talk with our hitters at TOU is why are we hunting pitches that aren't strikes? Why are we worrying about pitches that aren't on the plate? Like, so many hitters, you start quizzing them about, hey, what are you hunting? What are you looking for? Well, why are you standing on top of a plate? Well, I'm worried about that out there. Why are you worried about that out there? Right. You're supposed to swing at that, right? Like, so many hitters get lulled into swinging at balls that are balls, not pitches that are on the white and in the zone, and pitches you can do damage on. And it was really clear. Like, I watched a few of y'all's games, and you could tell they were hunting. Like, they were hunting to do damage versus hunting to get a hit. And there's a big difference between hunting to do damage and hunting to get a hit. And it's hard to change that mentality. And it looks like that mentality's been changed a bit.
It was a struggle, though. Like during the fall, I basically told them, I don't care if you strike out every single time. I want you to swing as hard as you can. Let's just see what happens. They were very, I would say, restricted before I got here, and I just try to free them up. Like, hey, who cares if you strike out? Like, you grounding out to second base is the same thing as you striking out.
Yeah.
Who cares about strikeouts? Now, if they're situationally, yeah, we're talking difference. But, like, there's nobody on, nobody out. Get your hack in. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe hit a double. Like, I'm not trying to hit singles because I need 4 of those in college, and 4 of those in a row in college is not a success. It's not going to be successful. So let's just go out and swing shit out the bat.
Well, and that's where I think too, like that's why I was talking about your slugging, right? Like y'all aren't just hitting home runs when your slugging is that high, but you can tell the 86 home runs are playing a huge role in that. But it just piles up total bases. You're gathering bases in one swing. You know, like people don't realize the value of the total base. You know, it's one thing to have a really high average. You hit up, you know, nothing but singles. We either got to get you to second or you got to be able to get yourself to second. And that's sometimes a tough approach. And, you know, the offensive side of the college game. Well, I want to ask this question first before I ask you about the other, but how do you think coaching travel ball helped prepare you for what you're doing now? And how do you think what role is it playing in the way you coach?
Well, you know, in travel ball, we don't have film to watch and chart pitches and know what the pitcher throws. You got about 5 or 6 pitches to see who they're throwing and make an adjustment on the fly. So just understanding that, you know, you're not going to be prepped. And if you can make those adjustments on the fly as a hitter, that's going to go a long way as you're starting to get recruited. But no, I think travel ball, we didn't know who was starting until that lineup was handed over. So I mean, usually have a pretty good idea on Friday who they're starting because they have patterns. But when you're, you know, facing stiff and 70 miles an hour, you got to go. You got to figure it out. You got to know what you're being able to hunt and go from there.
I actually think, and this is the truth, man, like I would assume that your plan and approach process for your in-game is probably where you see the most value having had coach, because you're having to make plan and approach decisions that have no forethought usually, right? Like you don't have anything to revert back to. You might have a chart from a game before that you played them, but you know the deal. Like I could play Mike Stith in the summer and play him 3 times, and I might not get to play him again until the next summer. You know, maybe I get to play him in the fall, but there's a real good chance that that a handful of the pitchers I saw in the summer aren't the handful of the pitchers I'm going to see. It's not like they carry over from year to year. You have some players do, but a lot of times it's different. And you have that moving up and down between their 16U and 18U team. You know, it's like the minor leagues. Well, I thought we were going to see this kid. Well, no, they're throwing a young kid at us today, and like we don't know me because of the recruiting process or whatever that might be. So having to adjust on the fly, I would assume probably helps you quite a bit. And that's probably has a lot to do with how good of the at bats y'all are having. You're able to have really good in game adjustments, I would assume, and that probably stems from enough experience doing that, because you have to do it every game. You have to do it every game. Yeah.
One of my horror stories was our first weekend out. You know, we're playing Alabama, and those who don't know, I'm from Alabama, and I'm a big Alabama fan. So we've been prepping for a pitcher who at a previous institution was throwing a rise ball at 70, and she comes rolling out throwing 72 with down, and I didn't do my hitters any favors, and that was kind of, all right, well, we got to figure this out. So every out's got to be in the air right now, instead of, you know, reverse where we were prepping for a rise ball where we want every, you know, low line drives. Now we want, hey, try to get a high fly ball. So just being able to adjust and not.
Will they question you right out the bat? You're like, dude, this dude told us we were going to see upspin this whole 2 weeks prepping for this. Yeah.
And so that was my first oh shit moment. I didn't do my hitters any favors, and they probably think I'm an idiot. No, that was.
But that required some quick change, some quick, you know, being able to change on the fly. And, you know, we already get told that hitters are robots. It's too robotic, all this other things. And where's technology? How do you think technology is helping you as a coach? Because you know that you and I talked about that, like we talked about before, that the people that embraced it, I always tell our bomber coaches, man, like, you know, technology is not going to replace you. It's coaches that use technology that's going to replace you, right? Because they have an absolute advantage that you're not taking advantage of. So how are you using it? What is its role in the way you're developing hitters, and what's that look like for you?
Yeah, so during the fall, everybody, we got their bat speed, rotational acceleration, all that stuff off of blast. And then we're going to see, all right, so let's increase our bat speed. Let's go from there. We had a bat speed program that our director of ops / player development guy came up with, and it worked beautifully. And then so we would continually to increase those numbers instead of just doing the eye test. To me, it was crock. Like, you're not going to be able
Which you're guessing at that point. Like, I think her bat speed's better. I think she, or it's down and it's really not, whatever that might be.
Yep. And then I think the biggest thing is Yacker Tech. You get in-game information, you get ball flight, you get exit velo, and that's something that, we started out like a hard hit for us, or a quality contact for us was 65 at the beginning of the fall. As we progressed, all right, now it's going to be 67.5. So we moved up 2.5 miles. When you put a ball 70 miles an hour with a launch angle of 20, it's
real good. Yeah, it's a real good chance it's out of the ballpark.
Yep. So,
yeah.
So we have a jumbotron, and we put the Yacker Tech up there so they can see
during practice.
Like, hey,
yeah,
you felt good. Well, that went over, but your launch angle was 50 and exit velo was 64. Like, that's not a deal for us.
The best part about it is you have an umpire in your live at bats. Yeah. Like, people don't realize, like, hey, why, when you're asking them, why didn't you swing that pitch? Why'd you spit on that? That was a ball. No, it wasn't. It's right here on the white. Look on the board. It's right there.
Yep.
Right. Or why aren't you swinging at that? It's a good pitch versus, hey, no, that was a nasty pitch. I understand why you took it. Look at the upspin that thing had, or look at the spin rate it had. I get it. So yeah, no, I think that's a cool feature, being able to put that Yacker Tech up on the scoreboard during BP or practice or live at bats, whatever that might be.
We literally did it yesterday, and the day before that, we're getting ready for Virginia Tech, who's got 10 inches of vertical break, and you're talking about a rise ball that jumps at 70 miles an hour.
You don't need to tell me about Emma Limley. I get it. I played against Emma Limley plenty.
In 9.
Yeah, no. And what's crazy is Pete and those guys do such a good job, man. Like, they're squared away. They do a great job, and it's tough, man. Like, everybody was. Can you imagine what Limley would be like? Her first couple of years, everybody's just making a big deal about her leaping. You can't talk about that shit no more. You better figure out how to hit it.
Yep,
that's it. It's real upspin.
No, it is true. Like, I remember when we were playing the junior Olympic team at the scrapyard with the Bomber.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot who was throwing, but she had her turfs on. I don't know who it was, Pops, but I'm sitting in that little cubby, and I'm like, that ball's literally jumping over their barrel at the very last second.
Yeah,
that was just
real up. People, I don't think people can appreciate enough, like, real upspin, like the difference between an elevated fastball and then real upspin, and how hard the induced vertical break, how hard that is for a hitter to combat. When it's really spinning up, and your eyes see one thing, and it's just that's not where it is.
Yep.
And the talent it takes as a hitter to either one, lay off of it, it's not hittable, or get above it, actually square it up or touch it, in some cases touch it. I don't think people realize that. And I think I think there's something to that. I think that's, like, to me, that's where our sport a little bit is lacking, is that there's not enough knowledge of that inside of our sport for people to appreciate, what 5.5 inches of induced vertical break looks like, or 3.5 inches, or whatever that might be. When you say that to someone, that's what I really love about the hitters today, is they're so much more experienced in that environment. They're so much more well-trained, I think back to when you were here and you were doing lessons in the Houston area, like, you could count on one hand how many good hitting coaches there were.
Yeah.
Now there's a predicament in our sport right now, and that's everybody's giving lessons. You could be a junior in high school and you're like, yeah, I'm done with my season. I'm giving lessons. It's hard. Like, I don't think people realize what they should be sharing with hitters that are a year and a half away from playing at Georgia Tech or playing against Alabama. Like, there's different things you need to be talking about than, hey, I'm just flipping you balls from behind the screen. That's hard. And if they don't get into that sooner rather than later, it gets really challenging, I bet, when they get to y'all's level.
Yeah, I think one of our redshirt freshmen, she came in early to get ready for next year. She's a catcher, and she's got God-given ability, and we do checkups every 3 weeks, a month. Like, hey, how you doing? And I asked her, what's the adjustment period been like for you? And she's like, I didn't realize how much machine work we would do, and that's been really challenging. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not.
Some people never hit off a hack. They've never even seen a hack.
Yeah. So I think that, going back to that, I want to see what you hit. Like, that's great. Like, people see, ball hit 75 on hit tracks, and I always look at, all right, so what was his pitch speed? 26? Great front.
Yeah.
I want to see, let's see that when it gets up to 65.
Yeah.
What's your variability like? Let's look at that, and that's okay.
And the hack's spinning it at 2,400. Yeah.
From there, let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, you barrel that up, then there's a little something going on. Yeah. Help hitters. Talk about a little bit. Help hitters. Hitters is not the right way to ask this question. Help players in what they should be sharing with you as a college coach to get recruited to play at Georgia Tech. How should they, if they're sending you something, what should they send you? What's gonna make Hunter Bunch go, okay, all right, okay, this is good. Now I can go pay some attention to this player, or I'm gonna add this player to a watch list. Like, how does a player get on a watch list for Hunter Bunch right now?
I think, is the fit correct in the sense of, with what I have graduating and what I need to bring in, do you fit that? And
but what can they send you, Hunter? Like, how do they get your attention? Right? Like, what's the best way for a player to do that today?
There was a kid that sent me something, had her speed at 2.6. I'm like, I don't have that. Let's look at that. Exit velo of.
But is that video? Is it? Are people? Are you finding more resource from social media?
Yeah.
The days of people sending you 100 emails and you being able to actually go through 100 emails. That's the challenging, right? Like that. You've been at the travel ball level. Parents they get a lot of anxiety about, like, how do I get? So you having been here, you having seen the anxiety on.
Yep.
The how fast the heart rate beats for a sophomore in high school who's 12 to 18 months away from having hopefully someone reach out to her on September 1st. All that's a really challenging period of time for players, right? There's a lot of anxiety. So what's the best way, do you think, that players could get your attention? Basically say, hey, coach, to pay attention to me. What is that? Because it's probably not email these days, right? It's probably not.
No, I mean, I'm not recruiting off Twitter, but like DMs, like send me
tagging you, those kind of things.
Like, tagging is a double-edged sword, as you probably already know. But like send me something through a DM, like, hey, check this out, because like, you look at emails, I get 100-something emails a day. I'm not going to go through. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not.
It's not possible. You don't have time.
No.
Yeah.
So like, I'll have my phone with me, like, got quality time with the wife, and then when she goes to bed, I'll pop on Twitter, see what's going on, and but my email, like, I don't check my work phone. I'll check my personal phone. So emails, I think, are dying. So social media, I think, just trying to get out there, get out in front of it, and target the kids target the coaches you want.
Yeah.
Pay attention to you, and just keep not tagging them, but stay in their DMs, like with everything you
Yeah.
do, and just
Persistence. Yeah.
consistent. Just one message saying, "Hey, coach, here's this."
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah, like it's challenging, and you have the challenge of people not maybe necessarily being realistic. Maybe they're a great player, but everything they're tagging is the top 5 schools in the country, and they're leaving out the other 20 in the top 5. Like that's one of the challenges I always try to share with our players is like, hey, let's just, and how we went about our business with that. We're pretty diligent in that process, and so training wise, what do you think of training today? Like, you were a trainer at one point, like that's what you did for a living in a lot of ways, right? And what do you think about the players and the way they're training in the sport, and what product you're seeing show up in college? What maybe should players be paying attention to? What type of training should they be doing, do you think?
It's a really long-winded answer you're going to get from me, but we use motor preferences at Georgia Tech. I don't know if you've ever seen, like, Oklahoma has a red or a blue picture. That's motor preferences.
Yep.
Knowing who you are as a mover, in the sense of, like, I like to go out and get stuff. Like, those are what we call aerials, and they want to feel free, and if they're a big mover, then you got to free them up and let them be big movers. Or a terrestrial, which was something that
how you see it on the horizon.
So they're going to be more low to the ground, and they want to feel, using their glutes, where aerials want to use their front side of their body. Knowing who you are as a person, as a hitter, like, if it doesn't feel right, do that.
It's crazy because, like, here in Nate's facility, we've started Hit Club, and it's really rooted in movement, right? Because so many kids have such bad movement patterns. They have great, it's weird to say this, but they have swings. Some of them are great swings, but the swing can't do damage because it's never in the zone long enough, or their body is not moving in a way that it's real productive. And that's where I feel like the biggest gap is if you watch the best hitters in the country, they move really well. Yep. Like, they just don't put themselves in a really weird, poor position at contact. They could do, everything could look different from the top 25 hitters in the way that they start, etc. But how they get, what they get to at contact, and the way their body is beyond the point of contact, those things, they're pretty similar. And not enough kids. And so, do you guys spend a lot of time on the mobility side and the movement part?
We have our trainer everybody has their own set of movements that they're doing. Like, it's not like one of our kids is doing, crossovers for her IT band because it's too tight when they, and then other kids are going to be doing stuff where their trunk rotation is not good enough. So we got to increase, like, everybody's got their own personalized workout. Pre-hitting workout is what we call it, pre-hitting. And it's not something I dictate. It's something that we call it's rehab or prehab. So it doesn't hit our hours. So that's 15 minutes. Like, let's say we start at 1 o'clock. Your ass better be down there at 2:30, starting your pre-hitting movements, and then we will start at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
But no, like, going back to that, like, movement patterns, pops, like, if you don't get to a good middle, what I mean by that, if you can't field a ground ball from when you're at your point of contact, you're probably not in a good position. If you're leaning too far back, leaning too far forward, you want to be middle. That's something that's a lot.
The rotational side of it too is such a lost comprehension of people. When you say to someone, hey, you're spinning out, or you don't have brakes, or you have no deceleration, like, if you say that to a lot of hitters, they look at you like you have horns sticking out of your head, right? And you, like, here in our facility, we've got an overhead camera, over the top of the cage. So we'll capture that part of it. And I can just stop it and go, look, watch yourself. And let's let's draw on the screen here and let's see how long your barrel stays through this zone. It ain't very long.
Yep.
Like you got to match up. Your matchup point is pretty small. And that's, can you do damage if they throw it here? Yeah. If they throw it here, you're not touching it. That makes you an average hitter, and they don't understand that, right? Like, and that's the other part we were just talking about. Like you're getting away with this in travel ball some because they don't know you have that hole in your swing. Okay. The difference is in college, they get to prep for you with game film. They're doing all week. They're playing you in a 3-game series, and they're going to see, like, she don't stay on the ball long enough. They just throw her down and away. She can't hit it.
Yep.
Like, it's not possible. Yep. She can't do damage to us. She can't hurt us there. And that's been one of the things. Last year, we had 112 home runs in the travel ball season, and which is idiotic. Yep. And I know we led the nation in home runs based on Athletes Go Live. Andrew was able to pull that data for me, and that was impressive. That was really cool in the sense that I almost, for the first time, felt like, hey, they're understanding what we're asking for, right? What part of the zone we're trying to hunt versus trying to chase pitches that we weren't supposed to be worried about, and we're finally starting to move the right way. And we had a couple of hitters. I think we had the number one, and then this high school season, I think we had the number one and the number two home run hitters in the country in high school. So, like and they're both not seniors, so it's kind of cool to see. Yeah. Yeah, so it was fun. I'm just proud of them. A handful of these kids, and the couple that led the country in home runs in high school, they worked their tail off. So it's really cool to see when they start to move the right way, because then you already have a really pretty good swing. You're already athletic as shit, and now you're moving the right way and you're hunting the right pitch. Like, it becomes I won't say easy, but it's a whole lot easier when you're starting to do things the right way. Speaking of that, what do you think about, there's a lot being said about the offensive production in the college game. And do you have the feeling that the hitters are a little further along than the pitchers? As a hitting coach, do you feel like, I know there's games you don't feel like that.
Yeah, it's
right. I know that, but I mean, just in general, as a whole, like, do you feel like hitting is, because I don't know I don't know what I have the answer to. Like, people ask me, like, dude, that the offense, like, scores are like 12-10. Like I get it. But do you think that, does it feel that way as a hitting coach in Power 5 college softball? I know you're going to answer this question. You're going to answer this question. You're going to go out and get 2 hits or something. That's not why I'm asking you this question. I'll tell you, it's more from a general aspect.
I think right now there's more talent in the offensive end of it, in the sense of, there's a handful of elite pitchers, to where you look at, other universities, they have better hitters than they do pitchers. And I think,
you think it's becoming more of a staff thing too? Like, for the days of there just being Montana Fouts on Alabama and they don't have much depth behind it, and you're going to see her 2 out of 3 for sure or whatever. But people are counting outs. They just go get 6 outs, go get me 6 outs, that kind of thing. Do you think that's becoming more normal?
Yeah, I think it is. And as you start to see the evolution of softball, right now I feel offense is a little bit ahead, but once you start messing with timing and different, barrel pitches, like they go up and down, and you have a kid that has a changeup, or maybe she's a lefty, like, your adjustability, in the sense of, you got to be able to adjust to this rise ball or this drop ball. And if you're not a good matchup, then you're in some deep shit. And that's,
and the reason I really feel like, because the World Series, look at the scores. Even at the World Series, when you're getting the eight best teams in the world jammed into one spot, man, the amount of home runs. Now, granted, pitching staffs are taxed; they got a lot of innings on them. Like, I get a lot of those things. I totally understand that. But I also will tell you that, like, in my own mind, my opinion of it is that is what's going to make being a hitting coach even more challenging, is you don't get to just prep for one arm.
No.
Right? Like, you literally, not that you do now, but what I'm saying is, you literally could have to go into a game and go, hey, we may see 3 different arms in this, and it may be equal. So we can't just commit to all we're going to see is this, because this one's This one's up with a nasty off speed, and this one's east west with a little bit of drop. Like we've got to figure out a game plan for all three of these arms that we may see in one game.
Yeah, I think
which is
midweeks are like, God, I hate midweeks because there is, like you said, like Troy, like came in with a lefty throwing 65. She's a freshman. I'm like, what the hell? And then she'd throw 2 innings, and then they bring in their ace for 2 innings, and then like Coastal Carolina. I don't know if you've ever been there, Pops. Coastal Carolina is gorgeous.
Nice.
It's on
Yeah.
the beach and
That's cool. I wonder how UL feels about Troy. He went in there last night and took him. I think beat him 3-0.
Yeah, they have some good arms. They really do, and that was a really challenging game. I think they came in being up like 10-7.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a back and forth game, and Troy can swing it a little bit, but they can pitch it as well, and that's.
Well, and that's an example of what I'm talking about. Like you just mentioned, they had really good pitchers, and there were 17 runs scored in the game. Like 17 runs. Like seriously, like that's why I asked the question, because I'm watching softball. I just am shocked at the scores, man. Like I'm just blown away by the scores. And that's why I'm like, because I asked the question, don't know it. Like I feel like I have an answer to it, but I'm not living that to the point where like you are. We're like, yeah, like I really do feel like we might have an advantage over the pitching today because of X, Y, and Z. And granted, that's not an absolute answer. There's a bunch of shutouts, right? Like I totally get that, but in general, I'm seeing way more 9-7. 11-9. Like it's shocking to me at the rate that I'm seeing scoring happening in big games between really good softball teams.
I think
kind of overwhelming sometimes, I think.
One of the things that I thought would be that would bring the scoring down was, the challenge of did the runner leave early?
I hate that rule, bro. Do you like that rule?
It takes away like the gamesmanship of it. Like, did you leave on time or did you cheat the cheat? And that's kind of like, you have kids that we were talking about this. It's like you hit a single, but if you just leave a tiny bit early, now you're out. Like that doesn't do anything for me. So it's kind of, we utilized it, but I thought that would bring the scoring down because it's going to take a lot of runners off the bases. It's not going to allow a lot of stealing. If you look now at college softball, hitters are leaving when the ball has been released. We talk about, going back when we coached, we're talking about we're leaving here, like get out and then go. Like that's what we did. And it's,
you know what though, bro? Like I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate the rule as a fan.
It takes
like I'm not. Well, it takes the speed away. It's slowing. But here's the deal. It's what I don't get, man. Like implemented a pitch clock, right, to speed the game up, and now there's 75 challenges a game. Right? You just gave all that time. You just took all this time to speed the game up, make it more efficient. And now we're just challenging the challenge because they just hit a 3-run bomb and we're going to look and see if a runner left early. Yeah. Like it's so stupid. It's just counterproductive for the game. Like it just doesn't make our game better. Yeah. Right. And like, I have no problem with challenging, did a runner leave early on a steal? Like if they just modified the rule and said, hey, you can really only challenge that on a steal play, right? Not on a ball hit. There wasn't a steal happening. Now, granted, they're going to say, yeah, but what if it was a hit and run or what if it was, like, I get it, but they got to modify this thing because as a fan, it's almost idiotic when you think like you're watching a game and somebody just hit a 3-run jack and then they go, come back, she's out and the home run comes off the board. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's just not good for the sport. I don't think. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I think you take away like that moment that a kid actually did something really well by a kid that wasn't even involved really in the play.
Wasn't even involved in the play. It's a runner at first base.
And that's tough. Especially,
yeah,
and it's strategic. I get it, but it's not fun.
No, I'm not downing the fact the way you guys as college coaches are utilizing that rule and paying attention and being strategic with it. It's incredible. I think it's smart. I imagine y'all have 10 different people watching base runners, right? Like I totally get it, and you should. I just don't like the what's the word I'm looking for? I just don't like the principle of the way it's being used, right? Like that's the part I don't dig, because I don't think that's the spirit. That's the spirit of the rule. I don't think that's the spirit of that rule is we're going to challenge if you left early. I think when that rule was adopted on betting, people were thinking about base stealing, not home runs, and let's check the runner at first if she left early. She was never even going anywhere. Yeah. Like it was just a bonehead move. Like she was not trying to take an advantage in the game, right? Like I get it, but it's just that's a challenge play that I just can't wrap my head around. I don't think it makes our sport.
They're talking about getting rid of it, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I know that's coming up, so.
Well, I think some modifications, just modify it and make it only it's like hey, you can't challenge, like you already have things you can't challenge, right? Put some things in there that you can't challenge that part of the play, right? But you can challenge an actual steal. Like if they did that, well then okay, because look, I get it. Like nobody tries to get a lead. Like we run as much as anybody in the world. So I'm not trying to take, but I actually think that has taken the speed component out of it a little bit, because it's such a fine line. Because base stealers have to, you get pitchers that know you get it, and they just start slowing down your motion a little bit. Just like there's just things that you can combat that with, but yeah, and that goes back. That's what I was going to ask you about. What you think the state of the sport is? What do you think of the state of the sport right now? How do you feel about it?
I think the hitters have never been better. I think what makes it's kind of like March Madness in the sense of everybody's got players. It's execution now. Like who can execute, and like you'll have your kids that are just lights out, but who's going to step up in that, and that's why you see a lot of upsets, and that's what I love about it, because you got a puncher's punch. Like we always say, we're never out of the fight. Like, we're never out of the fight. You maybe, get knocked down and we're down 6 runs. I think 18 or 19 of our wins have been comeback wins. Like, we preach that. Like, we work on it. Hey,
I'll give you the military flip of that. Instead of never out of the fight, always in the fight.
There you go.
Always in the fight. Yeah. Always in the fight. Never not in it. So who y'all got this week? You said VT, right? Virginia Tech.
Yep, we gotta win this game to try to make it to a regional. So we got everything to play for in front of us.
That's what I was going to ask you. Are y'all close? Y'all on the edge of possible?
Yeah, we're on the edge.
Spotting.
Yeah, we had a couple like games that you go back and like, dang, I wish I had that one back. Like. Maybe we didn't score enough runs against X, Y, and Z, and that's, those are the ones that keep you up at night. It's not the ones that you take care of. It's like we lost that. We needed one more hit, or we needed one more play to win that game, and we'd be solely like where we're at. Pops. The biggest home field advantage I've ever seen and ever experienced is Syracuse, New York, and it ain't even. It is 20. We played them. It was snowing. It was like 28 degrees. We go up there, and it's called Skytop, and it's on a hill. There are no trees. The wind is blowing, and it is freezing cold. You see. I know Florida State's got to go up there, but we went up there. We lost 1-2. Virginia Tech went up there, lost 1-2. The ball does not fly. So if you're an offense that relies on home runs, it ain't happening because you're hitting a cold ball. That is the best home field advantage ever.
Well, they need a home field advantage if they're going to live there, right? Like if you're going to be there, you will come up here. This is where softballs come to die.
Yeah, pretty impressive how that home field works. It's on the coast, like they recruit kids that will succeed there. And
yeah, that playing in 28-degree weather does not affect it. They're good.
No, they're good.
Yeah. So. Yeah, those teams from the South, they hate it. Well, bro, I appreciate you. I know your time is valuable. I pulled you out of time with. How is Mama? How's she doing? Everybody good?
Everybody's good. She's doing the waddle, so she's.
When is this baby that's going to be named Rawlings? When is she due?
June 28th in the middle of recruiting season.
Dude, okay, the fact that you're about to be a dad, you and I talked about this, the fact that you are actually going to be in charge of another human being,
Yeah.
a little scary. A little scary. Are you ready for all this? Are you ready?
I'm ready. I think I'm ready. You know, adaptability, adapt or die.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. What about the changing of the diapers? Are you down with that? Are you gonna be able to pull that off?
I'm ready. She's got a whole room already set. She's got more clothes than she knows what to do with. She's not even born yet.
Do you gag when stuff smells bad? Because it's gonna smell bad, bro. I'm just telling you. You think you know what it's gonna smell like? Yeah. No.
It'll be great. It's gonna be fun. It'll be.
You're actually, I think, gonna be a good girl dad. You've been a girl dad for a minute anyway, coaching girls as much as you have. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you of what you've done at Georgia Tech. I'm proud of you in general. You and I talked about it before. You outkicked your coverage when you got Michaela. So don't mess that up.
No.
Like, don't mess that. Yeah, you can strike out on the field. Don't strike out there. Yeah, you got to handle your business. But you've done a great job. I'm proud of you. Appreciate you jumping on here and talking softball. I want to remind people that you are a Bomber. That's where you come from. So we want to make sure that you keep true to your roots. But go up there, finish the season strong, man. We appreciate what you do, and you got to come recruit some more Bombers this summer. Get out there and
I'm already on it. So
yeah, I know you are. Well, appreciate it, man. Good luck this weekend, and we appreciate you jumping on the podcast today.
You're listening